Divine morning prayer. Put God first and experience miraculous transformation in 40 days. In the heart of a bustling urban neighborhood, Clare sat in her modest kitchen, lit only by the flickering candlelight. The air was thick with anticipation. Life had thrown so many trials her way, especially her son, Tom, who at 20 was lost in the grips of addiction. Yet tonight, as she gathered with her parish community for family prayer night, a divine spark ignited her weary spirit. Pastor John, a guiding light in Clare's life, spoke with fervor about the miraculous power of morning prayers, stating, "Put God first, and He will transform your struggle into wholeness." The room vibrated with faith that evening. Clare could feel the frenzy in her heart. That prophetic word pulsed through her like a melody, urging her to grasp onto the hope she had nearly forgotten. With determination flowing through her veins, Clare committed to a 40-day morning prayer ritual. Each dawn, she awoke early. As the first rays of sunshine slipped through her window, she'd kneel, hands clasped, heart open. "Lord, I surrender this struggle," she'd say, her voice a whisper of faith. On those mornings the air was electric. It felt as if angels hovered near, ready to respond to her cries. Though doubt lingered in the shadows from her friends and family, each prayer bolstered her hope. Even Tom, initially recoiled from her new passion, cocooned in the darkness of his addiction. Yet Clare pressed on, believing that each moment spent in prayer was a step closer to healing. Days passed. The first 10 felt like a blur, filled with routine prayers but limited in visible change. But then something shifted. On day 15, Clare's phone shattered the morning silence with terrible news. Tom had been arrested. In her life, that news felt like a thunderous storm, shaking her to her core. The walls of the jail echoed her fears as she sat across from him, face to face with loss and helplessness. Her heart ached. The weight was unbearable. But in this dark moment, Clare called upon the strength of her community. Friends, familiar faces surrounded her, praying together, lifting her spirits like heavy stones being cast into a blessed brook. "Your faith will be rewarded," they reassured her, igniting the flames of her trust anew. "Tom, listen to me." Tears streamed down her face in that confrontation. "I remember your laughter echoing through our home, your heart full of faith." It was raw, unpolished, an offering of love in desperation. As she pleaded, something miraculous shifted within Tom. The brokenness in his eyes flickered with recognition, and in his darkest hour he felt an unexplainable warmth. It was God reaching through, illuminating a path back to light. Clare's heart fluttered with a glimmer of restored hope, a divine promise taking root. Just then, a sudden financial windfall burst into Clare's life, confirming the power of prayer in the midst of despair. Bills once more manageable now felt insignificant against a tide of grace. The change in her circumstances was palpable. She felt light again, the darkness receding. As she entered the final countdown of her commitment, awe filled Clare as she witnessed Tom transforming. He was beginning to reclaim his life, and their love was blossoming like spring flowers through the remnants of winter. Yet she sensed an apprehensive shadow hovering over day 40. Was this truly an end, or merely the beginning of a greater spiritual trial ahead? As the joyous church gathering approached, echoing with stories of faith and healing, uncertainty lingered in her heart. They had ventured so far, but would they remain steadfast through what lay ahead? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation at the church. Hearts were ready, but Clare felt a twinge of doubt and nervousness in her spirit. Would the community rally around her, or would the darkness threaten once again? With each prayer echoing through the congregation, a sacred challenge loomed ever closer. What awaited them just around the corner? The day held possibilities of both triumph and renewal, but amidst the divine ambience, questions lingered. Where was God leading them next? As the congregation gathered, Clare's heart raced. Pastor John stood at the front, his presence commanding and comforting, as if he were a tree rooted deeply in the earth, drawing strength from above. The sanctuary, adorned with flickering candles and fragrant flowers, resonated with the whispers of faith that filled the air. Clare clenched her hands together, the knot of doubt tangling tighter within her. What if this moment didn't live up to her hopes? What if the transformation she had prayed for was still just out of reach? Suddenly, Pastor John began to read scripture, his voice echoing like a gentle river flowing through rocky valleys. "Cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you." Those words hung in the air like a lifeline thrown out in the stormy sea. Clare felt that truth resonate in her soul. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, inviting his peace to fill her anxious heart. The crowd swayed as they sang hymns of praise, voices entwined in a symphony of worship. Clare opened her eyes, scanning faces that mirrored her own journey of hope and struggle, each smile a shared battle, every tear a testimony of faith. The music washed over her like an ocean wave, drawing her ever closer to God's presence. When Pastor John invited everyone to share testimonies of renewal, Clare's heart quickened. Her hand shot up as if propelled by a divine wind. "I have seen miracles," she exclaimed, her voice breaking slightly but rising with power. "My son, Tom, is finding his way out of darkness, and it is through the grace of prayer and the support of this community." The room erupted with murmurs of encouragement, a collective spirit of triumph filling the space. Clare could see Tom in her mind, his spirit beginning to awaken, just like the earth does in spring after a long, cold winter. But doubt still danced on the edges of her thoughts, whispering fears of relapse, of setbacks. With each second that passed, Clare wondered, were they truly out of the woods? As the gathering continued, testimonies filled the room with palpable energy. Clare listened intently, each story a stone in the foundation of faith. A single mother recounted the gift of provision during her toughest days. A man spoke of a miraculous healing that had restored his sense of hope. Here in this sacred space, they were not alone. Each story wove into a tapestry of grace, binding their hearts together. Then a heavy silence fell when an older gentleman named George stood up. His voice trembled with age and wisdom as he shared how he had wrestled with addiction decades ago. "There was a time when I thought I would never find my way back," he said, his eyes glistening. "But God, He was always right beside me, even in my darkest moments. He never gave up on me." The congregation held its breath, the weight of his honesty settling like a comforting blanket over their souls. Clare's heart swelled. The light of God's promise pierced through her lingering doubts, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. She felt the stirrings of inspiration, awakening hope anew. Perhaps this gathering was not just a celebration of victories, but a reminder of the journey's continual nature. Trials would come, but faith would rise to meet them. With God, every setback could be a setup for a greater comeback. As the evening came to a close, the pastor encouraged everyone to bring their personal struggles to God, laying them at the altar. As Clare knelt, the flicker of the altar candles glimmered like stars, small reminders of God's everlasting presence. "Lord, I believe in your power," she whispered fervently. "Help my heart to trust this path even when doubt creeps in." Suddenly, a rush of excitement filled her. With the end of the 40 days in sight, she could almost feel the next chapter unfolding. Days filled with grace and challenge would soon reveal what truly awaited them beyond this milestone. Would they embrace this season of change together? What deeper revelations lay ahead? As Clare rose to her feet, she turned her gaze towards Tom, who now stood among the congregation, eyes shining with a flicker of hope. The true miracle was beginning to bloom, but a deeper calling beckoned them forward. Would they be ready to walk this path of faith together when the next trial emerged? With hearts buoyant with anticipation, the congregation erupted in a final chorus of praise, sending their voices into the night. As Clare absorbed the unity around her, new questions brewed. What will God ask of us next? The answer felt just out of reach. Yet Clara knew, within her very soul, that the journey had only just begun. The following week brought a gentle shift in the air, a time of reflection, both personal and communal. Clare could feel it, this subtle current, winding its way through the hearts of those around her. The days since the gathering draped themselves in a cloak of possibility. Outside, the world held its breath, waiting to see how faith would unfold. On a bright Sunday morning, Clare found herself seated in the sanctuary once again. The familiar scent of blooming flowers filled the air, a bouquet of hope mingled with quiet expectancy. Pastor John stood at the altar, illuminated by the soft glow of sunlight streaming through stained glass. His presence was a beacon, guiding each heart toward the promise of God's unfathomable love. As worship began, Clare closed her eyes and surrendered to the music, letting it wash over her like a healing balm. Each note intertwined seamlessly with her own thoughts, a reminder that God was orchestrating something grand within her and the community. She listened intently to those around her, the laughter, the whispers, the humble offers of prayer. This was where miracles lived, woven into the fabric of shared faith. When Pastor John spoke of a new initiative, a call to action titled 40 Days of Devotion, Clare's spirit ignited. The purpose was simple, to dedicate time each day to prayer and to uplift one another. The excitement in the room was palpable, hands raised and voices anticipating the change that would come from putting God first. Together, we will witness transformation, he promised, and everyone nodded in agreement. Clare could feel her own heart beating in rhythm with the hopes of the congregation. As the weeks passed, Clare began to immerse herself in this journey. She carved out time each morning, each hour, taking quiet moments to reflect and to seek the Lord. Each prayer transformed from whispered requests into conversations, heartfelt exchanges with her Creator. There was something powerful in surrendering each worry, doubt, and fear. Day by day, the knot within her began to loosen. But then came a night when doubt rose like a tide, fierce and unrelenting. Clare sat on the edge of her bed, the shadows stretching long across the walls, pulling her into familiar fears. What if this season of devotion was just another fleeting moment? She whispered into the dark. The uncertainty felt like a heavy fog enveloping her soul. Just as despair threatened to take root, a soft knock interrupted the silence. It was Tom. His eyes were bright, and his spirit seemed to radiate light. "Mum, can we talk?" he asked gently. Clare nodded, grateful for his presence. Together they sat on her bed, and Tom shared something beautiful, a newfound joy in prayer. He spoke of how he had connected with God and his desire to serve in the youth group at church. Hearing his words was like receiving a gentle embrace from the heavens. Clare realized that God was answering her prayers through Tom, that hope was alive and growing between them. "I believe," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I believe we will not just survive, but thrive." As Tom took her hands in his, they both felt a spark of unity and purpose. That night, Clare headed to bed with gratitude blooming within her. She was reminded that their journey was indeed one of partnership. When she awoke the next morning, a renewed sense of purpose washed over her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that more awaited them. As the days of devotion continued, each moment grew in significance. Clare felt God whispering anew, urging her spirit forward as she stepped into acts of service, encouragement, and love. Each encounter became a divine appointment, revealing glimpses of God's greater plan. But as Clare dove deeper into the joy of serving, a new challenge emerged from the shadows. A familiar face from the past reappeared, threatening to disrupt the peace they had worked so hard to nurture. Would this be the test of faith they had been preparing for? With uncertainty creeping in but hope igniting her heart, Clare's true journey had only just begun. What was God preparing them for next? Each breath lingered with unanswered questions, hovering like whispers of destiny ready to unfold. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft patterns on Clare's face as she rose with the dawn. The events of the previous night still weighed heavily in her heart. A familiar face, someone she hadn't seen in years, had emerged from her past. Richard, a name that stirred both memories of joy and pain. What did his return mean for her and Tom? She needed clarity. She needed guidance. Sitting at her quiet kitchen table, with a steaming mug of tea cradled in her hands, Clare turned her heart toward God. "Lord," she began softly, "I need you now. Please, guide me through this uncertainty." The warmth of peace enveloped her like a gentle embrace, and in that stillness a thought emerged. Maybe Richard's return was not just a challenge, but a divine appointment as well. Could God use this moment for healing, for reconciliation? Flames of hope flickered amidst her fears. She had seen how prayer had transformed Tom's life. Perhaps it would do the same for Richard. Over the next few days, Clare immersed herself in prayer, seeking guidance in Scripture, reflecting on the teachings of Jesus about forgiveness and love. Each time she opened her Bible, verses flickered to life, reminders of grace and mercy. Her heart began to mend, realizing that God was calling her not just to confront this past, but to embrace it as part of her ongoing story. It wasn't long before she decided to reach out to Richard. A simple message: let's talk. The heart can be tender and yet fierce, and Clare knew this conversation held weight. When they finally met at the park, feelings of trepidation rushed through her. The moment she spotted him, memories came flooding back, the laughter, the heartbreak, the pain of separation. Yet there was also a profound sense of anticipation. Perhaps healing awaited them both. "Clare," Richard said, his voice a mixture of regret and hope as they sat down on the bench. "It's been a long time." She looked at him, really looked, and saw the eyes of someone seeking redemption. "Yeah, it has," she replied softly, feeling something shift within her. "What brings you back now?" Richard took a deep breath. "I've been on a journey, Clare. I'm finding my way back to faith. I need to make things right. With you, with God." Tears shimmered in Clare's eyes as she thought of all the times she had prayed for this moment. "Renovation within can begin now," she whispered, sensing the threads of past grievances unraveling. As they shared their stories, breaking down walls that had long been reinforced, Clare felt pieces of her heart that had been closed off begin to open. She could see God's hand in every word, guiding them toward healing. That night, Clare knelt by her bed, a sea of gratitude cresting within her. She marveled at how God had orchestrated this encounter, transforming her fear into hope. Suddenly, it dawned on her. This was not just a healing for her and Richard. It was a call to be a witness to others, to share the legacy of what it means to embrace the past in order to reach toward the future. As she prepared for another day of devotion, Clare felt more alive than ever, her spirit ablaze with gratitude and purpose. With the reality of Richard in her life again, what new adventures awaited her? With a heart full of anticipation, she stepped into the sunlight, ready to meet whatever lay ahead. What challenges would they face together on this path of reconciliation? What lessons of faith would unfold in the days to come? Clare awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The sun peeked through the curtains, bathing her room in a warm glow, and she felt the presence of God fill the space. Each moment carried a newfound significance as she prepared for her day. Today was not just another day, it was a chance to step further into the unfolding story God was writing in her life. After a nourishing breakfast, Clare sat down with her Bible and notebook, eager to delve into the Word. As she flipped through the pages, her heart raced with expectation. The Lord had been faithful in her journey of healing and restoration. She sought comfort in familiar verses, each one a gentle reminder of His everlasting love. "Seek the Lord and His strength, seek His presence continually," echoed through her mind. Those words reminded her of the importance of pursuing not just answers, but an intimate relationship with God. She prayed, her heart open and vulnerable. "Lord, as I seek You today, guide my thoughts and my actions," she whispered, inviting His grace to envelop her. Clare knew her meeting with Richard had the potential to be transformative, not only for herself, but for him as well. They were both standing at a crossroads, and Clare asked God for wisdom. "What should I say to him?" she pondered, flipping to Proverbs. "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." A sense of calm swept over her. She could trust in God's leading. Before she knew it, it was time for their second meeting, and Clare's heart fluttered with anticipation. As she walked to the cafe, she reflected on how their stories had intertwined yet again. Would they rediscover their shared faith? Could they truly encourage one another to grow in God's grace? Upon entering, she spotted Richard at a corner table, his nervousness evident. Clare took a deep breath and approached him, determined to be a vessel of love and understanding. "Richard, I'm so glad you're here," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "Thanks for meeting me, Clare," he replied, his eyes searching hers. "I've had a lot on my mind since we last spoke. I feel I've been wandering for so long." Clare felt a wave of empathy wash over her. She understood that sense of searching, of yearning for something more profound. "There's always hope for the wandering heart," she said, gently encouraging him. "God is waiting with open arms." As they sat together, sharing their struggles and victories, Clare felt a tangible connection grow between them, a bridge being built back to trust. She could see the burdens lifting from Richard's shoulders, and in turn, she felt her own fears diminishing. "So much has changed in my life," he confessed, "and yet sometimes I feel overwhelmed by my past mistakes. How do I truly move forward?" Clare paused, considering the question. "It starts with surrendering those burdens to God. He desires to carry our worries. Remember that He makes all things new. Whatever has happened, it doesn't define who you are." Tears glistened in Richard's eyes as he absorbed her words. "I want that. I want to be transformed." With every conversation, it felt as though they were both shedding layers of guilt, fear, and hurt. Clare realized their meeting was becoming a sacred space where God was weaving their lives together again, binding them not only in their shared past, but shaping them for a shared future. That evening, with her heart brimming with gratitude, Clare knelt to pray. She thanked God for this moment of reconnection, trusting that this was only the beginning. Each day brought new hope, and she felt urged to share their journey of faith with others. As she rose, a warm light washed over her, filling the room with spiritual energy. What lies ahead? She pondered, excitement crashing over her like a wave. God was not done with her yet. There were still lessons to learn, healing to witness, and opportunities to rise boldly in faith. But what awaited them on this path of hope and reconciliation? What divine surprises might God still unveil in the coming days? The next day dawned bright and beautiful, as if the world itself had awoken with the promise of new beginnings. Clare felt invigorated by the freshness of the air and the sweet scent of blooming flowers. She sensed God's presence, urging her forward, inviting her into the sacred rhythm of the day. With a sense of urgency in her heart, she decided to call Richard. Reaching for her phone, she hesitated for just a moment. What will I say? She wondered. But deep down, she knew God was already guiding her. She took a deep breath and dialed. Claire? Richard's voice broke the stillness, a hint of surprise lacing his tone. Hey, Richard! I was just thinking about our last meeting. How are you feeling today? There was a brief pause before he responded. Honestly, I'm feeling a bit lost again. I thought I was on the right track, but I keep second-guessing myself. Claire could hear the weight of his words. It's okay to feel that way, she replied. Sometimes the path to healing isn't a straight line. It can bend, curve, and even seem to disappear for a while. But trust that God is holding your hand through it all. As they spoke, something shifted within both of them. Claire felt a spark ignite. She had no doubt that they were being wrapped in God's love, a blanket of hope. Can we meet again today? Richard asked. I think I need that. I think I need you. The invitation felt like a divine appointment, and a thrill ran through her. Absolutely. Let's meet at the park. There's something calming about being in nature. As Claire made her way to the park, the lush greenery and chirping birds welcomed her like an old friend. She could feel the anticipation filling the air, an undercurrent of something miraculous about to unfold. Sitting on a bench, she closed her eyes for a moment, inviting God's peace to wash over her. Richard arrived shortly after, his expression more at ease compared to before. Thank you for being here, Claire. I think it really helps to talk about these things outside. They settled into conversation, laughing lightly over shared memories and childhood dreams. But as the sun began to set, shedding golden light around them, the mood shifted. Richard's eyes became earnest. Claire, I was thinking, what does it really mean to let go of the past? How do I fully embrace who I am now? Claire nodded, sensing a sacred moment. It's about understanding that God doesn't just wipe your slate clean. He transforms your heart. He wants to heal the scars if we let him. It's a journey of trust and surrender. Can you guide me in prayer? Richard asked, his voice almost pleading. In that sacred space, Claire held his hands, and they bowed their heads. Lord, we come before you, acknowledging our struggles and surrendering our pain. We ask for your healing touch over our lives. Teach us to embrace our identity in you. Tears fell freely, cleansing their hearts as the weight of the world seemed to lift. Claire felt the rush of God's love filling them, transforming the ground they stood on into holy ground. A sense of peace washes over me, Richard admitted, looking up. I've yearned for this. I've longed for this connection. Claire smiled through her own tears, resonating deeply with his feelings. It's God at work within us. This is just the start. As they parted that evening, Claire sensed a shift in the wind. The horizon held a radiant glow, hinting at treasures yet to be revealed. She felt light, unburdened, transformed by the power of their shared faith. What deeper connections and revelations would unfold as they continued their journey? What unknown blessings were still hidden along their path? The mysteries of God were only beginning to unfold. The following day, Claire awoke with the sun filtering through her curtains, casting golden patterns that danced on her walls. It felt as if heaven itself was waking her, gently nudging her into the day with delightful anticipation. She reflected on the previous evening, a sacred encounter, a movement of God's presence that was now ingrained in her heart. As she sipped a warm cup of tea, Claire wrote in her journal, her thoughts flowing like a steady stream of devotion. Lord, she penned, you are the light in my path. There was an excitement bubbling inside her, a mix of gratitude and wonder. Today, she was determined to seek opportunities to bless others, to become a vessel of his love. Deciding to visit the local community center, Clare felt that would be the perfect place to connect with those who might need support. The center buzzed with activity, laughter, and even tears, every emotion mingling together in a holy swirl of humanity. Children played, while caregivers encouraged them with warm smiles. As she walked through the vibrant halls, she spotted an elderly woman sitting alone on a bench, her gaze fixed on the ground. Clare's heart fluttered. It was in these moments of stillness that she often found the divine. "Excuse me," she said softly, approaching the woman. "Is everything all right? May I join you?" The woman looked up, surprise etched across her face, before a wistful smile emerged. "Oh dear, that would be lovely. Just lost in my thoughts, I suppose." Clare sat beside her, sensing a heaviness in the air. "When we let go of the past, it can feel overwhelming. I believe God's love can lift our burdens. What weighs on your heart?" Tears glistened in the woman's eyes. "My husband passed last year. Some days, I don't know how to keep moving forward. It's hard to let go of who we were." As Clare listened, she felt that urging spirit once again. "I understand that pain. It feels like a deep ache when we lose someone we love. But remember, God promises new life. He can transform our grief into a testimony of hope and resilience." The woman nodded slowly, her fingers fiddling with the rosary. "I don't know if I can. It feels impossible." "Let's invite God into this moment. He never leaves us, you know," Clare suggested, reaching for the woman's hand. In that intimate space, they prayed together, a simple act that turned a heavy heart into a lighter one. "Lord," Clare whispered, "bring the warmth of your love to comfort her today. Help her see the beauty still alive within her heart." As they finished praying, a new light seemed to filter through the clouds outside. The woman smiled, her countenance shifting. "Thank you. I do feel lighter, as if a weight has been lifted. You've brought me hope." Clare beamed back at her. "It's truly God who shines through our conversations. Remember, He's with us always." After sharing a few more words, Clare continued on her way, buoyed by a sense of purpose. In the moments spent connecting, she realized something deep within her soul. The act of giving love also filled her heart. It was a sacred cycle of divine grace, weaving hope into the very fabric of daily life. Later, as she strolled along the park's winding path, she felt a gentle rustling of the leaves overhead. Could it be? Was God inviting her deeper into His mysteries? Was there even more to explore? And as if in answer, a gentle breeze carried whispers from the trees, stirring an exhilarating anticipation within her spirit. What revelation awaited her next? What unforeseen love story was yet to be written? Clare's heart raced, eager to discover where the journey would lead. Clare continued her walk, the path before her glistening in the soft sunlight. Each step felt significant, as if she were treading on sacred ground. The world around her hummed with life. The laughter of children echoed. The chirping of birds wove a melody that danced in the air. She inhaled deeply, letting the fresh scent of blooming flowers fill her lungs. It stirred her heart towards gratitude, reminding her of the beauty woven through every fleeting moment. As she meandered through the park, she noticed a small gathering at the far end. Intrigued, Clare approached to find a group of friends engaged in lively conversation and joyful sharing. They were discussing their lives, their struggles, and the serendipitous ways they had encountered God's grace amidst their trials. A palpable warmth enveloped the gathering, wrapping Clare in its embrace. "Come join us," a cheerful voice called. A young woman with bright eyes extended her hand in invitation. Clare stepped closer, feeling drawn in by the shared experiences that resonated deeply within her. Sitting among them, Clare listened as one gentleman spoke about the hardships he faced after losing his job. "It felt like a storm came crashing down on me," he said, the vulnerability in his voice palpable. "I wondered how I could keep going, but then I remembered that God is my provider. He led me to opportunities I never thought possible." Encouraged by his story, Clare shared her own revelation from the previous day. It's incredible how God transforms our grief into life. That's the beauty of faith. Even in the darkest valleys, we're never alone. She felt her spirit lift as she spoke. It was as though her words were pouring out a light that ignited the hearts around her. In that moment, a profound understanding washed over Clare. God's love didn't just act in her own life, it rippled outward, connecting with others in ways she could scarcely comprehend. So many souls were intertwined in a greater tapestry, each thread formed through pain, joy, and divine intervention. Just then, a little boy came rushing through the group, a colorful kite trailing behind him. He stumbled and fell, the kite tumbling away. Everyone paused, and for a brief moment, silence fell over them. "Get up, buddy! You can do it!" someone called from the group, the encouragement echoing off the trees. Clare felt a stirring within, a nudge to act. She rushed to the boy's side, extending her hand. "You're brave. Let's get that kite back in the air." With her help, the boy regained his balance. Clare held his hand as they both chased the kite across the open field. The other gathered friends cheered them on, their laughter ringing with joy. Clare marveled at how one act of kindness led to another, creating a symphony of love and support. When they finally captured the kite, the boy's face lit up, and he jumped in delight. Clare's heart swelled. She realized this simple act was more than just recovering a kite. It was about lifting spirits, reminding everyone around of the promise of hope. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky with hues of gold and lavender, Clare returned to her bench, her soul brimming with peace. She sat quietly, allowing the day's events to settle within her, pondering the sweetness of community and shared faith. But then, a rustling caught her attention again. Floating down from the branches was a single feather, glistening like a piece of heaven. Clare caught it gently in her hand and felt a rush of calm flow over her. What was God saying now? Why was this feather a sign, and what new journey was he preparing for her? As she held it close to her heart, she knew she was on the brink of another divine revelation. What lay waiting just beyond the horizon of her understanding? Clare sat on the bench, the feather warm in her palm, its softness a stark contrast to the cool grass beneath her. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, letting the tranquility of the park settle into her spirit. Time seemed to slow, the moments stretching like the branches of the trees above her. Each leaf rustled with the breath of the wind, whispering secrets that only the heart could comprehend. As she opened her eyes, the golden light of the setting sun danced across the plaza, casting long shadows and illuminating the faces of those still gathered nearby. Clare felt an urge to rise, a gentle pull on her heart, as though the feather itself was nudging her to step into something greater. With the warmth of the day still lingering, she walked toward the group again, the laughter and voices intertwined, creating a melody that pulled her closer. There was a woman seated on the grass, her hands clasped tightly over her knees, her expression contemplative, as if she were weighing the world's burdens. "Is everything all right?" Clare approached, her voice soft, infused with genuine concern. The woman, whose name was Sarah, looked up, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "It's just, sometimes I feel so lost. I'm struggling to see where God is leading me, and it feels heavy." Clare sat down beside her, sensing the need to share what had begun to ripple within her own heart. "I understand. There are days when the path feels unclear, like being caught in a fog. But it's in those moments, I believe, that God is preparing our hearts for something beautiful. Sarah smiled faintly, but Clare could see the hesitation lingering in her gaze. "I wish I could believe that." "Let me share something with you," Clare replied, her voice taking on a more earnest tone. "Yesterday, in my struggles, I felt a divine nudge to trust him. I realized that each feather, like this one," she gestured toward the delicate plume, "is a reminder of his presence. It's a gentle push towards faith, guiding us to lift our eyes beyond what we see." As Clare spoke, she sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The air around them filled with a sacred tension, as if God's Spirit was weaving between them, weaving threads of hope into Sarah's heart. They both sat in silence for a moment, allowing the words to settle, like seeds waiting to take root. Then a young boy, still gleeful from the kite adventure, dashed over to Clare and Sarah. "Do you want to see my kite again?" he asked, breathless and radiant. Before Clare could respond, Sarah's eyes lit up, the cares of her heart momentarily set aside. "Yes, show us!" As they followed the boy, the gathering began to shift, joining them in pursuit of happiness. Laughter rang out as the child flew his kite high. Hearts lifted with each swell of the breeze. Clare watched Sarah's worries melt away, her laughter blending with the joyful chorus. In that moment, Clare felt the divine revelation begin to bloom within her again. Maybe it wasn't just about sharing wisdom. Perhaps God was inviting her to witness the transformation that happens when souls collide in vulnerability. The feather rested quietly against her chest, its significance starting to unfurl. What if it signified a new beginning for Sarah? Or an opportunity for Clare to cultivate deeper faith within herself? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows long and deep, Clare knew something was shifting within them all. Each heart, each laughter was part of an unfolding plan, and just then she felt it, an irresistible pull, a calling to act on this divine connection. "Sarah," she whispered, excitement welling up inside her, "what if we decided to pray together? What if we asked God for clarity, for direction? I believe he wants to reveal something wonderful." Hope glimmered in Sarah's eyes as she nodded slowly, a spark igniting within her. Clare took a deep breath, ready to embrace the sacred moment ahead. What could emerge from their prayers? What new paths might God unveil? The mystery lingered like a pending promise as they knelt together, hearts open, spirits aligned. The sun rose on the final day of Clare's 40-day prayer journey, casting a glorious light through her window as if the heavens themselves were celebrating. It felt like the world was waking up with her, urgency pulsing in the air. Clare knew this was a pivotal moment. The essence of her prayers and hopes had all led her here, to this day of faith and fulfillment. After her morning devotion, she set her heart to prayer once again. "Lord," she started, tears brimming, "thank you for the journey. Whatever is next, I trust you. Guide me." She felt it, an undeniable presence wrapping around her, a promise of renewal, a call to hold on to faith tightly. Later, as Clare arrived at the church for the culmination gathering, she could sense excitement and anticipation buzzing in the air. Pastor John welcomed everyone with open arms, his voice a balm soothing weary souls. "Today we celebrate all that God has done," he announced with warmth, lighting a fire in their hearts. One by one, testimonies poured forth. Stories of struggle, redemption, and community shimmered through the congregation. Clare sat on the edge of her seat, her heart swelling with gratitude as she listened to Tom share his story. His voice trembled, yet he stood tall, a beacon of hope. "With my mother's prayers, I'm no longer lost in my addiction. God's light is leading me, and I'm finding freedom." His eyes glistened with faith. A hush fell. Clare's heart raced, a wave of emotion washing over her as she held Tom's gaze. He had come so far, rising from the ashes of despair. The bond they forged in these 40 days was stronger than she had ever imagined. As the congregation erupted in applause, Clare felt a nudge within. She was meant to share her story. She stood, trembling with both fear and faith, and approached the front. "Excuse me," Clare called, her voice wavering. "I want to share something important." The room fell quiet, all eyes on her. "Through this journey, I've seen God heal not just my son, but my own wounds as well," she began, her heart pounding. "I learned to embrace not only faith, but to welcome the past. It hasn't always been easy. I faced fear, doubt, and even pain, yet each prayer, every moment surrendered, was a step toward hope." A warm silence enveloped the room, as her words hung in the air, rich and heavy with truth. "I met someone from my past. I had to face my wounds, but instead of rejection, God opened a door for healing and love. He revealed to me that our struggles are not just for ourselves, but to unify us in His Spirit. I've learned that every trial is a preparation for even greater testimony." Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the awe flooding the sanctuary. Faces reflected understanding and compassion. Clare could see God hugging every heart present. With renewed strength she continued, "Life is a tapestry, woven with both joy and sorrow. Let our scars show us not weakness, but the endurance of God's grace. Together, as a community bonded through faith, we can overcome anything." As Clare finished, a wave of applause erupted, echoing around her like the chorus of angels. She felt cleansed, light, and full of purpose. A testimony of faith released to the world. Pastor John capped the event with a prayer, inviting everyone to take part. "Bring your burdens to God. Lay them at the altar, not just for yourself, but for those in your life who need to see His light." Clare joined the procession, hand in hand with Tom. As they knelt together, she envisioned the future, the lives they would touch, the wounds they would help heal. "Lord, may this journey continue," she whispered, heated joy in her heart. The atmosphere transformed. She could feel the chains of despair breaking, the air humming with hope. A feather drifted down from somewhere above, landing gracefully in front of Clare and Tom. It landed softly as a gentle reminder from God of His continual presence. "Look, Mom," Tom exclaimed, picking up the feather. "A promise." "Yes, a promise," Clare echoed, laughter spilling from her lips. They stood, holding the feather aloft, a symbol of healing and transformation, an emblem of faith shared among them. As the community rallied together, Clare realized this was far more than the end of a journey. It was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter, open-ended, filled with a divine calling to love, heal, and encourage one another. What awaited next would not just be for them, but for the world around them. This was God's promise fulfilled. Clare smiled wide, knowing that together they'd walk forth to write the next pages of His great story. Now, beloved friends, this is the moment. You need to subscribe now to witness more amazing journeys of faith. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and push this message of hope forward. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this ending. Your voices matter in this divine testament. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see God's manifestations in action. Let's take this vital step together and surround ourselves in the power of faith, encouraging each other on this incredible journey God has laid before us.